Hi there, welcome to FM Language. In today's class, we will be talking about content words and function words. More specifically, function and content constituents. As we said in previous classes, the unit of grammar that we will be focusing on will be the notion of constituent, not word. At times, I will be using the term word, but whenever I use the word word, I will be making reference to constituents. The reason why I will use the word word is that notions such as, or phrases such as content words and function words are very common in grammars, traditional grammars, and if you happen to read those books, you will run into them. But it is important to remember that whenever we use the word word, what we are saying is constituent, not word. So there are two different types of constituents. We have content constituents or content words and function constituents or function words. So the categories of constituents that we have already discussed in other classes, such as noun, verbs, prepositions, conjunctions, determiners, will belong to either one group or the other, namely contentives or functors. That is, content words, constituents, or function words and constituents. We will call them contentives and functors for questions of economy. The first thing that we will do is to state which categories are contentives and which categories are functors. That is, which constituents belong to the category contentive and which constituents belong to the category functor. More importantly, we will state the relevance of saying this is a content word, this is a function word, or this is a contentive and this is a functor. Why do we want to draw this distinction? The first thing that we will say about contentives is that content words or contentives make reference to semantic notions. By semantic notions, we mean the following. For instance, if I say house, noun, house, we're going to say that is a content word because the word or constituent that is characterized and categorized as a noun can make reference to some entity, some notion. So when I say house, you can think of a house. You can get a picture of a house. So content words have a referential meaning in the sense that you can think of a notion, you can get a picture of it. So you can picture a house. If you think of pronouns such as she, if I say she, you need to make reference to the woman standing there, or that lady, or that female student. So she is not a content word, it is a function word or a functor, because the function, and this is basically the definition of a functor. A functor or a function constituent is a constituent that has a grammatical function. In this case, the function is cotextual, that is to refer to some other element in a spoken or written text. So if you read Mary, blah, 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 she, blah, 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 she refers back to Mary. So function words such as pronouns refer to content words such as Mary or the woman. So what we are talking about here when we say contentives have meaning, this is a semantic criterion, right? Let's think of verbs. A verb is also a content constituent. If I give you the verb run, jog, write, read, you can think of a person performing the action of running, jogging, reading, writing, cooking, different actions. For the time being, we will say that verbs refer to actions. However, in the future, we will look into different types of verbs, and we will see that verbs refer to actions, states, and processes. For the time being, let's stick to the definition of a verb as a category of constituent that will make reference to some kind of action. Fine. So then a verb, given that it refers to some action that we can picture in our minds, will be classified as a contentive. On the other hand, if you think of auxiliary verbs, we're going to say that auxiliary verbs will specify the time, as is the case with do or does, or the modality, as is the case of may, can, could, should. By modality, it's important to clarify this in passing. By modality, we mean the expression of the attitude of the speaker. So, auxiliary verbs will specify either the attitude of the speaker or the time in which the speaker has performed an action. So notice that distributionally speaking, modal verbs and auxiliary verbs in general, auxiliary verbs referring to time and auxiliary verbs referring to modality, will precede the verbs, and we will go for may come, is coming, does come, will come. So auxiliary verbs have the function of specifying either time or attitude. That is why we will say that auxiliaries are functors. They have the function again of specifying attitude or temporal notions in which the actions are performed. Because if we just take the verb jog, we can never know when the action takes place, and we can never know the attitude of the speaker that is talking about the act of jogging, like I may be going jogging. So notice that so far we have contentives, nouns, functors, pronouns. Contentives, verbs, functors, auxiliaries. So there is some sort of correlation between noun and pronoun, in the sense that pronouns refer to nouns, and there is also a relationship between main verbs and auxiliary verbs, in that auxiliary verbs will specify something, will have the function of specifying something about the main verbs. Let us take up other categories. Let us talk about adjectives. Adjectives are also content constituents. Think of beautiful, think of nice, think of odd. If I say odd weather, boring person, beautiful woman. Think of adjectives as categories that will express qualities. So we'll go for pretty, we'll go for boring, pretty woman, boring person, odd weather. So these terms make reference to some kind of quality, and we can think of things that are beautiful, or people that are boring, or weather that is odd because it's cloudy. So we can again have a picture of the quality, not an idealized picture, but some kind of picture. Notice also that distributionally adjectives, we have talked about this in previous classes, adjectives come before nouns. As a pretty woman, odd weather. Now, which is the function category that will be somewhat related to adjectives? Well, a lot of grammarians think, and we will advocate this position, a lot of grammarians think that referential constituents or determiners, such as the car, or a house, or his car, or his house, referential constituents are also placed or located before nouns, and they have the function of providing such nouns with reference. So we can, in a way, establish a correlation between adjectives, attributive adjectives that come before nouns and qualify such nouns, and referential elements such as articles and possessive pronouns that will give reference to the nouns in question. So we're going to say the good students, where students is the head noun, good is the qualifying adjective, and the article the is the element, the function word that is giving reference to the whole phrase. Well, now we will discuss more controversial categories. I will tell you what is controversial and what is not controversial. By controversial, what I mean is what is canonically assumed to be the case and what I think to be the case, and I will be making arguments in favor of what I think. For instance, that some elements, such as on, are content words because they make reference to a location. I can say on table. You can think of a place. In, on, over, through. You can picture them. Again, prepositions are contentives and they make reference to some notion. Again, location. So again, nouns make reference to things, verbs, actions. Adjectives, qualities, prepositions make reference to places. Now, notice that there are some prepositions, some constituents, typically known as prepositions, that can function as conjunctives or connectors. Think of, for instance, the preposition for. If I say this is for you, the preposition, as the word indicates, is preposition before a noun, for noun or pronoun, for you. But if I say it is important for students to pay attention to this, or it is important for you to listen to me, for is functioning as a conjunctive or connector. In some grammars they will say a complementizer between, but some kind of nexus, some kind of connector between it is important, the main clause, and for you to do this, the subordinate infinitival clause. We can think of other instances. Think of the preposition on the table. On is preposition before the table, the nominal phrase, the table. However, if I say she insisted on my staying here, or she insisted on me staying here, which can be paraphrased as she insisted that I should stay here, we can think of on as a term that is conjoining she insisted, main clause, on my staying here, or on me staying here, a phrase that seems to have some kind of clausal structure. Me, which can function as the subject of the phrase, me staying here, predicate, subject predicate. Notice that this is basically a condensation of that I should stay here. Last but not least, I will state that, canonically speaking, adverbs are considered to be content words. Because again, if you go like beautifully, you can think of a quality, but in this case a quality can attach to a verb, can modify a verb. She sings beautifully. If I say carefully, he drives carefully, carefully will say something about the way in which he drives. This is the canonical definition. What I think is that adverbs are expressions, are constituents that make reference to prepositional phrases. So we're getting into a whole other level. So again, canonically speaking, adverbs are considered to be content words. However, I think that they are function words because when we say beautifully, what we mean is in a beautiful way. So beautifully is a condensation of the prepositional phrase in a beautiful way. Notice that some adverb, there are slots for words like friendly. You cannot say friendlyly. You should say in a friendly way. Some adjectives do not have some adverbial form. So I think that adverbs may also be considered to be function elements or functors, given that they make reference to a phrase. But there we are getting into a whole other layer of analysis. We are not talking about, again, constituents that are made up of only one element. We're talking about constituents that make reference to a whole phrase. So what I'm saying here is highly controversial. Again, adverbs are typically canonically characterized as constituents belonging to the category contentive. They are contentives. Here I am challenging the idea that adverbs are contentives. I think, again, that adverbs of manner, like beautifully and carefully and recklessly, make reference to prepositional phrases. So they have a referential function. They can be considered to be functors that replace prepositional phrases such as in a reckless way, in a beautiful way, in a slow way, in a careful way. But again, this is a controversial statement, and I am highly interested in raising issues and discussing them, and I am not simply here to repeat what we have canonically learned at school, right? So I think that we need to problematize some of the categories that we have learned, and probably in the future we will come up with very interesting conclusions regarding categorization and word categories and content and function words. There's another interesting category that I would like to analyze, more specifically what we call adverbial particle. Canonically, adverbial particles such as up and on make up phrasal verbs, as in go on and give up, or in, as in give in. When you say give in, meaning surrender. When you say give up, meaning abandon. When you say go on, meaning continue. You're resorting to phrasal structures, give up, give in, go on, that are typically known as phrasal verbs. So what is a phrasal verb? It's a verb plus an adverbial particle. We call these particles on, in, up, adverbial particles, not prepositions, because prepositions are prepositioned before noun phrases, or before nouns, or before pronouns. That is not the case with adverbial particles. And again, I would like to take up the issue of whether the adverbial particle is a content word or a function word, because they again make reference to notions such as continuity in the case of go on, or notions such as completion, as in fill up. But these notions are highly metaphorical. So I was thinking about the following. Let us take this sentence. What if I say she climbed up the stairs? She climbed up the stairs. Or she went up the stairs. Up the stairs is a prepositional phrase. However, our prepositional phrase can be replaced by an adverbial particle. We can say she climbed up. So up seems to be a condensation. The adverbial particle up seems to be a condensation of up the stairs, which can in turn become upstairs, which can in turn become up. If I say he climbed up the mountain, or he looked out the window, we can again replace up the mountain or out the window by she climbed up or she looked out. So what I'm saying here, what I'm trying to say here is that again, adverbs, adverbial particles are replacing prepositional phrases. Think of phrasal verbs such as give in, she gave in, she surrendered. Where does that come from? Very probably the phrasal verb she gave in, containing the adverbial particle in, is a condensation, a reduction, an economical version of she gave in ground. When you surrender, you give in ground. Think of a situation in which you need to compromise. So you give in ground, the other person gives in ground. So you give in, they give in, the other person gives in, and you can compromise. That is, you can come to an agreement as a result of having given in ground. So in is replacing the phrase in ground, in giving ground, and up is replacing, the adverbial particle up is replacing up the stairs or upstairs in she climbed up the stairs. I'm not saying that this is true. We are not going for dogmatic truths here. What we're doing is thinking the grammar way, and I think it's interesting to raise these issues, to discuss them, so that we can think the grammar way. This grammar is to be thought, to be constructed, to be developed, not to be simply repeated. So our treatment of adverbs is not canonical, not traditional, not conservative, is highly controversial, and it's inconclusive. And that is why I think it's interesting to think about adverbs in this way. Which way? Okay, the controversial way. We're going to talk about adverbs again in the future. For the time being, let us say that again we have content words and function words. These are traditional categories, and we go like this. Look, verb, main verb, that's a content word. Auxiliary verb, that's a function word. Then we got nouns, content word or content constituent, and we have pronouns, function words or function constituents. Then we have prepositions expressing location as in on the table. This is a content word. And then we have prepositions that seem to function as connectors or some sort of nexus between main clause and subordinate clause in cases such as it is important for you to do this. Next we have adjectives expressing qualities. These are content words, and we have determiners with the function of giving reference to the noun. So adjectives will endow nouns with qualities, and determiners will provide reference. Again, we're talking about articles, we're talking about possessive pronouns such as his, her, their. Last but not least, we have problematized the notion of adverb. And we have said that adverbs are typically canonically considered to be content words or content constituents, but we have said that there is a possibility that they might be function versions of prepositional phrases. In our next class, we will be talking about phrases. So far we have dealt with categories, and we have said that categories belong to either content or function types of constituents. So now what we will do is expand our categories into phrasal constituents or phrasal structures. So we will go for noun phrases and verb phrases and adjectival phrases and prepositional phrases and so on. So we hope you have enjoyed this class. If you have liked our class, we expect you to subscribe to our channel so that you can receive updates on our latest videos, and probably you want to like it and share it with your fellow colleagues and students. Bye-bye.